Welcome to the Football Film Room Show. I'm Nick Kehoe. We got another jam-packed episode for you. Today, we're going to talk about C.J. Stroud and that Houston Texans offense, why you should be concerned if you're a Texans fan. We're going to talk about Jaxson Dart finally getting the nod in New York. We're also going to discuss Baker Mayfield and how he's really performing at a black belt level when it comes to playing the quarterback position. But before we do any of that, I want to go back in time. Not too far. Just going to go back to like the 2019, 2020 time frame. So just 5 or 6 years ago. This will be a shorter history story. But I want to talk about Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones. Now, you obviously know who both of those quarterbacks are. Darnold last year came back from some early career struggles to have just an exceptional season with the Vikings. Earned himself a contract now as the Seahawks quarterback and has played well through the first 3 weeks. Daniel Jones also had some, I guess you could say, early career struggles. Also played in New York initially. And this year he seems like he's found a great home in Indianapolis. Shane Steichen, as I talked about last week, has him playing at an extremely high level, at least through the first 3 games. But if you go back to those first couple of seasons in New York for both quarterbacks, you kind of had a similar pattern there where in that first season, they both showed promise. Sam Darnold, he had a good start, kind of started to struggle throughout the middle of the season, missed a little bit of time with an injury, but then he came back in the final 4 games of the season, he looked like a different quarterback. He looked like someone who was starting to get it and was putting some good things together heading into the offseason, heading into year 2. Daniel Jones also had a good first season. His debut against the Buccaneers was just one of the best I think anyone's ever seen out of a quarterback making their first ever start in their rookie season. I think he set a couple of rookie records as well for number of games with 4 touchdown passes, and he had 1 game with 5 touchdowns and no picks, which was an NFL rookie record. So both quarterbacks had a lot to build off of in that first year. But something happened along the way to becoming a franchise quarterback. Both teams decided not to make protection a priority. Or they just were incompetent in their ability to protect both quarterbacks. The Jets in Darnold's second season ranked dead last in pressure percentage allowed. That was in 2019. That was when the very famous Monday Night Football clip of Sam Darnold saying, "I'm seeing ghosts out there," that's when that happened. In 2020, they ranked 29th in pressure percentage allowed, and that was pretty much the end of Sam Darnold's career in New York. He had 2 dismal seasons in 2019 and 20, got traded to Carolina, and that was that. With Daniel Jones and the Giants, we can look at how things went in year 2 and beyond and see kind of a similar story. You can look at the Pro Football Focus pass blocking grades. The Giants ranked dead last in 2020. They ranked 30th in 2021, made some slight improvements in 2022, and then ranked dead last again in 2023. It's tough for any quarterback to play that way. And clearly Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones, both of them suffered. Not just that they got hit more, it wasn't just that they got injured, it wasn't just that they got sacked and weren't able to do things that other quarterbacks were doing. It was that they developed bad habits. They weren't able to have the confidence to just hang in the pocket and work through all their reads. They couldn't get to the backside of concepts. If their first receiver wasn't there, certainly if their second receiver wasn't there, they would bolt. They would leave the pocket. And that was whether they had pressure or not. Other times, they would just predetermine their throws. They would decide pre-snap, hey, this is where I'm going with the ball no matter what, because I'm not going to have a chance to sit back here and read it out. And that would lead to, of course, forced throws, turnovers, incompletions, inefficient offense, bad quarterbacking. That certainly prevented both of them from becoming top-notch quarterbacks from the pocket. And obviously it took them going to different teams. With Sam Darnold, it was the Panthers, then the 49ers, then the Vikings, and now he's with the Seahawks. With Daniel Jones, it was the Vikings for part of last season, and now he's with the Colts. And like I said earlier, it seems like he's found a good home there. But either way, neither of them were able to become the face of the franchise, become the franchise quarterback with the teams that drafted them. The reason I bring this up is because you're seeing somewhat of the same thing down in Houston. I don't think it's quite to the same degree as it was with Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones. CJ Stroud, he was a much more polished quarterback coming out. In his first year, he won Rookie of the Year, so he didn't just have like a good or promising first season. He was Rookie of the Year. He brought the Texans to the playoffs. He won a playoff game. But then last year, the Texans were not very good at protecting him, and that changed everything. They ranked dead last in pressure percentage in 2024. And that led to C.J. Stroud changing the way he played. He went from being a comfortable quarterback who could work through his progressions. I just remember writing article after article and breakdown after breakdown of him in 2023 of how mature he was as a quarterback, how he was seeing the game, seeing the field really well. He was drawing up plays on the sideline and talking about it in press conferences and throwing game-winning touchdowns in the closing moments based on things he was drawing up in the dirt or just talking to his receivers about. He was a mature player, wise beyond his years, certainly for a rookie. And then last year, that all kind of changed. He looked like an uncomfortable quarterback. Now, why did that happen? Well, throughout the course of the year, the Texans were not only bad at winning their one-on-ones, they couldn't handle good scheme. They couldn't handle blitzes up front. They had a lot of trouble with stunts. And this offseason, they made a lot of changes. They traded away Laramie Tunsil. They kind of redid their offensive line. It was a bit of a gamble to do that, and so far, it has not been paying off. The Texans are 0-3 to start, and they are 0-3 with a top 5 scoring defense, which is hard to do. And that tells you everything you need to know about how bad the offense has been. The Texans ranked dead last in scoring this year. And it's the result of everything I just talked about. In addition to not running the ball especially well, Stroud has been under duress. This past week against Jacksonville, Josh Hines-Allen just had a field day, was winning one-on-one after one-on-one, got to Stroud for a sack, hit his arm on the final play of the game for a game-sealing interception. But it wasn't just that. It was the stunts they were bringing. It was the twists they were bringing. The Texans' offensive line looked like they had never seen a stunt or a twist. Linemen were just following whoever was going first on the stunt instead of staying home and being alert. And the Jaguars were doing this out of fronts that were basically signaling to the Texans, hey, we're going to stunt here. And the Texans still couldn't pick it up. So right now, they're 0-3. They need to get this offense back on track. They need to get that offensive line straightened out. Because if they don't do that, they're not going to get C.J. Stroud straightened out. And while I do think it's a long shot that he goes the way of Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones and has a failed career in Houston and moves on and starts playing well elsewhere, the Texans got to be careful. They got to be careful that he doesn't end up like that because the trajectory is not going in the right direction down there in Houston. All right, moving right along to the New York Giants and Jaxson Dart finally being named the starter. Well, I guess I can't say finally. I mean, it's only week 4, so it's not like he had to wait so long to become the starter, but you know what I mean. Jaxson Dart will be starting this week against the Chargers. Sat for the first 3 games. The Giants went 0-3, got embarrassed at home on Sunday Night Football, a poor offensive performance. Fans were booing. The entire nation could see how bad the offense was. Russell Wilson did not play his best game. That's an understatement. So the Giants made the switch. Now, personally, as a Giants fan, I'm excited to see Jaxson Dart. So I'm glad they made the move in that respect. And I think just in general, developing quarterbacks, my philosophy has always been I'd like to see a guy play as soon as possible. I want to know what he's made of. I want to know how he handles adversity when he's in a situation where he's not supposed to succeed. Because if he can't handle that when he's supposed to fail, how is he going to handle failure when there are high expectations? How is he going to handle the New York media when the Giants are, a Super Bowl favorite, but they're 500 halfway through the season? Right? That's what you want. That's what I want to know about my quarterback. Not to mention, I don't think there's a better way to learn than by doing. Now, there are a lot of benefits to being on the sideline, to watching a veteran, seeing how they prepare, seeing how they go through a game, the conversations they're having. There's benefit to to sitting a quarterback for a few weeks or a few months or even the first year in terms of just letting him see what an NFL season is like, week in, week out, the rigors, the preparation, all that. But again, I'm someone who definitely errs on the side of I would rather see my first-year quarterback play right away. My problem with this move is not that Jaxson Dart is playing. My problem is that it's pretty clear that the Giants were making this move in a reactionary way. And it gives you a little bit of insight into how the organization makes its decisions, how it's been run over the last really decade and a half. When you draft a quarterback in the first round, certainly when you trade up for a quarterback in the first round, you're drafting that guy to be your future. You're drafting him to be the face of the franchise. Everything that you do, every decision you make, everyone in that building has to be on board with making that quarterback successful. And part of that is determining when you're going to have him play. With few exceptions, perhaps, unless it's a situation where you have a quarterback who's already there and you're competing for a Super Bowl and you're planning for the future, similar to what we've seen in Green Bay with the transition from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers and then from Rodgers to Jordan Love. With the exception of really that situation, everything about your team when you draft a quarterback in the first round needs to be about developing that quarterback. And so when you're making the decision on when to start him, like I said, I have my preferences, but you go into the season with a plan. If you're going to have him play right away, have him play right away. If you want him to sit for the entire year, like Patrick Mahomes did, go ahead and do that. If you want to pick a week where he's playing a weak opponent and that you want that to be his first start, you do that. If you want to wait till midway through the season or the last few weeks so he has something to build off of heading into the offseason, or perhaps you give him his first start after a bye week because he's got 2 weeks to prepare, fine, go ahead, do that. But just make that plan and stick with it. Don't let outside forces determine when you are going to play your rookie quarterback. And clearly with the Giants, this was not a move that they said at the beginning of the year, all right, let's look at our schedule here. Who should we have Jaxson Dart start against? Oh, here's a perfect opponent. We'll have him start against the Chargers, who were the number one scoring defense in the league last year. Yes, that's what we want. That's the one. That's the one. Week 4, we'll have him do that. There was no way on earth that was a decision they made entering the season. So clearly this was something that was reactionary, and it was coming from one of 3 places, and none of them were good. It was coming from either the owner saying, to hell with this, I'm tired of getting booed, national TV, that was an embarrassment. Let's get going with the young guy and get these fans excited. If you ever have an owner making your football decisions, you're in trouble. So that's number 1. The other 2 options are that Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen were making this decision based on the fact that they feel like they're on the hot seat. So they felt like they had to go and put Jaxson Dart in because now you have your rookie quarterback in, and now the season becomes less about winning and losing and more about, are we showing progress? But my problem with that is if Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen are on the hot seat, if they feel like their jobs are on the line, why were those 2 anywhere near the decision to pick the next face of the franchise at quarterback? Because in my opinion, you either had to cut ties with Daboll and Schoen before the year, or if you were going to let them make this monumental decision, this franchise-altering decision potentially, you had to give them 2 years. So again, I'm not concerned that Jaxson Dart is actually starting. I'm concerned that this move was not necessarily made with his best interest in mind. It was made for reactionary reasons. And it gives you an idea of why they just haven't been able to get anything right for the last decade and a half. And finally, we need to talk about Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield and the 3-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who very well could be 0-3 right now. All 3 of their wins have come on last-minute scores. The most impressive thing to me about Baker Mayfield, though, is how in command and in control he is. That's probably his best asset. He doesn't have the strongest arm. He's got a strong arm. It's just not the strongest. He's an accurate passer. He's just not the most accurate. He can throw with anticipation. He's not Peyton Manning. He can run. He can scramble for first downs. We've seen it a bunch, especially in the final minutes of games. He's not Lamar Jackson. But he can do a little bit of everything, and really, he's resourceful. He's resourceful. He uses pump fakes. He manipulates defenders. He knows what to do at the line of scrimmage. He knows when the defense is on his heels and when to go no huddle and get up to the line. He had one touchdown last week against the Jets where he saw that Mike Evans was singled up on the goal line and Sauce Gardner was on the other side of the field. So he quickly got him up to the line, gave Evans a little hand signal, and then threw him a quick slant for a touchdown. But the biggest play that Mayfield made last week was on the final drive of the game. It was a 28-yard completion to get the Buccaneers into field goal range. About a minute and a half left. They were down 27-26. And the reason it was so impressive was because the Jets were showing Mayfield a pressure look that they'd actually gotten him with earlier in the game. They got him with a sack earlier in the game. The look was the Jets basically put two linebackers in both A-gaps. So they were showing blitz. They were threatening blitz there. They had one of those linebackers come, one dropped out, and then they brought a slot blitz from Mayfield's left. And the way Tampa protected it was they accounted for the 4 down linemen and the 2 linebackers, and they left the slot blitzer unaccounted for, which is there's no problem with that. That's totally fine. That's a common thing to do. The blitzer was coming from distance, so you can't necessarily account for him. So they planned to protect against the most dangerous 6. The problem there was that Mayfield's hot throw was taken away, and then the blitzing corner kind of got in the way of the throw, kind of impeded the throw. So Mayfield had to eat it, ended up moving around the pocket, and took a sack. Well, fast forward to the end of the game, the Jets are showing a similar look, just flipped, coming from the other side of the field. Mayfield recognizes it, and instead of protecting the same way and throwing hot, he decided to slide the protection towards the slot corner, account for him, and then they left one of the 2 A-gap linebackers. They left one of them unaccounted for, which you almost never do. But the only reason he did that was because he recognized the blitz and knew one of those guys wasn't going to be coming. A very savvy move. You don't see that all the time. That's like a Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers at the line type of thing. That high level, black belt level NFL quarterbacking. And sure enough, that's exactly what the blitz was. The Buccaneers picked it up. Mayfield didn't have to peek right to look at the blitzer and see if he was picked up. He knew he was secure to the right, and that was important because his primary read was to the left. The route concept he was working was a flat 7 to the left, and he could just take the ball, drop back, didn't have to rush himself, and then he took this one step further. He actually manipulated the flat defender in the area, gave him a little pump fake, a little shoulder roll to make sure that he wouldn't be a factor on the throw. And then he drilled just a perfect pass on the corner route for 28 yards. Just quarterbacking at the highest of high levels, really in every single way, from pre-snap to post-snap. Just unbelievable stuff from Baker. And it was something that you don't see a lot of quarterbacks do. I'm not going to use the E word with him, the elite word, or anything along those lines. I will say that he's playing just at a Jedi level at the quarterback position, and he's as responsible as any quarterback is for his team being 3-0. That's it for today's show. Thank you all for listening. Looking forward to another great weekend of NFL football. I'll make the same request I did at the end of last week's show. If you do listen on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, any of the other podcasting apps, please go ahead and leave a 5-star review. Actually, I didn't mean to tell you what level of review to leave. If you like the show, leave a 5-star review. If you think the show stinks, leave a 1-star review. I'd be okay with that. Anyway, everyone have a great weekend, great week. We'll talk to you next time.